Adventures Club of Los Angeles. My name is Chuck Jonkey, and I appreciate your coming out tonight for Welcome to the Adventures Club of Los Angeles. My name is Chuck Jonkey, number 1026, and we're about to take what I think is an amazing sonic safari adventure to distant worlds. So, to begin with, I'm going to talk a little bit about the jungles of Costa Rica. I love the jungle, and it's really great to hear the sounds, to see the sights, to do photography and video in the jungles. So one night, I decided I wanted at least a 30-minute recording deep in a rainforest. It was late at night. So I found a path and hiked in there for quite a ways. So I'm by myself. There was a bit of a moon out, so I could see a little bit. Set up my recording gear, and then started listening to the sounds. Well, the sounds of the jungle are mystic and fantastic. You never know what you're going to hear. Sometimes you hear myriads of insects, or you hear different kinds of frog species, or other little critters, birds. And actually, the indigenous people have titles for some of the sounds that they hear, but they've never seen these mythical creatures, and they create these legends about them. So as I was listening to those great sounds and just kind of drifting off, I suddenly started to hear something fairly large moving in the foliage. And that brought my attention back, and I thought, okay, what am I hearing? Something fairly large moving some leaves. It's coming a little bit closer. The only thing I could think of is a jaguar. So I thought, okay, now what do we do with this? Do I grab my stuff? It was going to take a minute to get it together and just take off down the trail, or wait? So like any normal person, I decided to wait. So as I sat there, it got closer and closer. Eventually, I could hear some kind of a scratching noise, and it sounded like claws in the dirt. And suddenly, it kind of came out into this little clearing, and certainly it did have gigantic claws. It was a huge anteater. So it could have cared less that I was standing there, and it just kind of kept on digging through the dirt with this long snout, and he was about 4 feet long. So that was one of many, many experiences in the jungles of the world recording sounds. In fact, the very first CD I did was called Rio Amazonas. So I had spent time in the Amazon and recorded sounds all over the place, and then composed music to that sound. Anyways, how did this all begin? I'm going to give you a little bit of a history as to how I sort of got into this stuff. So at age 19, I decided I was going to become a missionary. So I volunteered my services, and it turns out that a few weeks later, I put my papers in. I got a letter saying that I'd been called to the Andes, Peru mission. And of course, you're seeing this photo of me and my buddies. We always had bands, early bands. Can you guess which one is me? I'm in the middle. You know, I still wish I had that guitar. That guitar today would be worth a ton of money. Anyways, so I found myself in Peru, and it was a spectacular experience. I found that I not only grew spiritually, but I grew by learning the culture, and I learned to speak fairly fluent Spanish. And then all the legends that these people believed in, and of course the music was incredible. Now at that time, the mission was the entire country, which today is 15 missions. It's grown tremendously. So I was able to spend a fair amount of time in the Lima area, and then went all the way north to Chiclayo, Lambayeque, and then up to on the border with Ecuador, all the way to Piura. Then I went down south and ended up 6 months in Arequipa. Anybody been to Arequipa? Yeah, beautiful place. At the base of 3 volcanoes. And it's a wonderful, wonderful place. It's called the White City. That's because it's built, a lot of the buildings are built with this white volcanic stone called siar. So at Arequipa, we had a few adventures. I'm just going to tell you a couple of these adventures. So one day, I was sitting with some friends in their home, and suddenly somebody burst in from outside and said, "Somebody's drowned." I go, "What?" So we go running out there, and I need to preface this by saying, in parts of a lot of Arequipa, they have these sidewalks. Underneath these sidewalks are these drainage ditches. They're almost like a river underneath the sidewalk. And unfortunately, at some points, portions of the sidewalk are missing or they've broken up. So what had happened is some kids were out playing around this area, and one kid fell into the drainage ditch and was sucked under and went for who knows how long. And finally, they dragged his body out, and we went out there, and sure enough, here's this kid on his face, and a bunch of people surrounded him, screaming and crying and beating on him and doing everything but the right thing. So I ran over, flipped him over, and started mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and CPR. And I didn't realize this, but I guess the people didn't realize what I was doing, and some lady thought I was trying to kill him, so she grabbed a big chunk of wood and was about ready to smack me, and so my companion kind of held her off while I continued to do the work. And eventually, he started coughing, and he started breathing. So that was fantastic. And then about that time, an ambulance came by, picked him up, and whisked him off, and I never heard what happened since then. And I'm hoping that he had a great life and was able to survive and not have, any problems. But that was just one of many adventures. I'll tell you another one. So we were there at a time, it was a military dictator by the name of Juan Velasco. Velasco hated the U.S., very anti-U.S. Of course, we never did anything political. In fact, if anything, we stayed completely away from political. All we did was to teach those who were interested. And in fact, he was such a fanatic that he banned Santa Claus. Santa Claus was an evil Western influence. So instead of Santa Claus, they had this little kid with a little cholito hat, and that was the Santa Claus at that time. So anyways, in Arequipa, myself and my friend, we were what they call the zone leaders, and we had charge of the southern half of the country. So at one point, we needed to visit the city of Tacna. Tacna is on the Chilean border. And to get there, we decided we'd take the bus. So the bus was about a 6-hour ride through the Atacama Desert. So we get on the bus, and just going through the desert and just having a nice ride. And several hours into the ride, we come across a military checkpoint. So these kids get on the bus, and they all have automatic weapons. Now, I should digress for a minute. A lot of the military, this is how they get people into the military. Like on a Saturday night, they'll hang out around places where kids hang out. And if they come out of a dance hall or movie theaters or whatever, they grab these kids, and if they don't have the proper documentation, they're in the Army now. So consequently, they have lots of younger folks that aren't very well trained, and we came across some of them. So two of these guys got on the bus, and they're asking everybody for their documents. Well, what happened prior to that, we were in with our passports. We had 6-month visas. So every 6 months, we had to turn them into the office, and they would take a couple of weeks to go into the government office and have the visas renewed, which meant that there was a couple of weeks that we didn't have our passports or the visa. So instead of that, they just issued like a letter describing what was the process that was going on. So on this bus, it was during that time, we had this little letter. So these two kids get on with their weapons, and they're asking everybody for their documents, and they come to us, and they said, "Okay, passport." And I said, "Well," and I tried to explain to him. He said, "No, passport." I said, "Well, here's a letter." He didn't want a letter. He wanted the passport. And so he marched us off the bus. So here we are in the middle of the Atacama Desert, surrounded by these young guys that are trigger happy with these automatic weapons, and I'm trying to explain to them, and like I say, I speak fairly decent Spanish, what's going on, but they didn't. So it's getting pretty tense, and I didn't know if we were going to end it, if it was going to end there in a shallow grave in the Atacama Desert. But the bus driver got off, and he really led into these kids. He was really upset, first of all, that he'd delayed his whole trip, and that he'd taken us off the bus, and he was so really furious at him. And they backed down, and they let us back on the bus, and we made it to Tacna and survived. So that was just a couple of things that happened in that 2-year period. So then I returned and went to the university and was studying medicine. I was going to become a dentist, and I'm so glad I didn't follow that career path. But I was always doing music because I loved music and had little bands since, back in the elementary school days. So I joined the jazz band in the university and had a great time. So then after that, I was teaching part-time guitar lessons at a music store in Pasadena, Old Town Pasadena. And at one point, this man and his son came to take lessons for the son. And they were from India. So we started in on the lessons, and they were very nice folks. And of course, I was asking them questions about India. And after about the third lesson, the father said, we're going to have to suspend our lessons because we're going to be taking a trip. Oh, where are you headed? We're going to India. I said, oh, man, that'd be fabulous. He said, well, why don't you come with us? I said, I would love to go to India, but at that time I was saving money for my first Amazon South America trip, and so I was kind of saving money and time for that. So I finished the lesson, and at that time I knew the kid's name. I did not know the father's name. So at the end of the lesson, he said, I've been thinking about it. Would it make a difference if I paid for that trip? And I said, thank you very much. I couldn't expect you to do that. He said, well, look, you think about it. Here's my card. And they took off. So I could not get that out of my head. So I went home that night thinking, first of all, I didn't know if I could believe it. I mean, I didn't know him well at all. And how could he just offer, a big thing like that? But I thought, well, what the hey? I'll call him up. So the next morning I called him up and said, I'd love to go. So come on up to the house. So I went up to his house in Altadena. It wasn't a big mansion. It was just a nice, normal type house. And he sat me down, and he pulled out an itinerary for 6 weeks in India. The only two destinations that I recognized were Bombay and Delhi. They had things like Aurangabad, Jaipur, Udaipur, Leh, Kashmir, all these other places. And he started showing me these photos. And I said, man, I'd love to do this. He said, okay, I need your passport. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's a passport scam. I still wasn't convinced. So I thought, well, I can always get a new passport. So I went home, came back with the passport. And so I gave him my passport. He said, okay, I need to send somebody to San Francisco to the consulate to get a visa. So then that was that for a while. Then I got a call a week or two later, and he said, Chuck, come up to the house. I went to the house. He hands me a round-trip ticket on Air India, my passport with an Indian visa in it. And it was at that point I realized I'm going to India for 6 weeks. And that became an absolute phenomenal odyssey. And I had incredible times there and couldn't wait to get up every morning to see what was out there, take my camera, and had a wonderful time. Now, so we did all that stuff, came back from India, and I said, his name was Kersey. Kersey, you've got guitar lessons for life. And at one time, a few weeks later, we went to see Ravi Shankar play sitar here in Pasadena. You all know who Ravi Shankar was, I hope. So we went to see him, and it was spectacular. And so I thought, and we were able to meet him. And at the same time, we met a fellow by the name of Harihar Rao, who became my teacher of Indian music. And I studied with him for many years. And as a result of that, got to be good friends with Ravi Shankar. In fact, I own one of his sitars. So that was a whole wonderful thing. And the fascinating part of India was what they do with the exotic melodies and rhythms. And I still use that to this day. When I go running, I come up with these. Most of the music that we listen to in the West are in 3-time or 4-time, pretty much. In India, you can be 17, you can be 29, you can be 53, 47, any number, and you can do it. So you're seeing photos here of, since that time, I went to India many times, and these are some of the people that I met on my travels to India and in my studies, and I've really had a wonderful time with that. Right there, we're looking at a man that was playing a really interesting instrument called the rebab. A really poor guy, But I hired him, and this is where he lived. It was a dirt, kind of basically a hut with a dirt floor, and just played the most incredible music, a fabulous recorder. So that's what I do when I go around the world. I meet these people. Now, right here, you're looking at the Laughing Club of Bombay. I don't know if you've heard of the Laughing Club. So we were out walking around a park and with a local person that lives in the Parsi section. And I said, what are these people doing? He says, oh, this is the Laughing Club. I said, well, what is that? They meet every morning very early in the park, and they do calisthenics, and they do trade jokes back and forth, and they laugh, and they think that's the whole thing of how do you stay healthy. So I said, you're kidding me. So I went the next day with my camera, met these guys, and they put me right in the middle of the Laughing Club, and it was phenomenal. I have a whole other video TV program that I did that includes the Laughing Club, but that was really phenomenal. And this is one of the ladies in the Laughing Club. So what she ends up doing, this is the last thing that she does, she says a prayer and then laughs her head off. So I mean, really wonderful things. Okay, so then, so since then I've been traveling around the world and documenting this stuff. So I'm going to play a little video for about 4 minutes that shows some of the places that I've visited to record stuff. So if we could play that, Phoebe. Thanks. So, since that time, thank you very much. You've got to have a camera on these. Yeah, that's my guitar store. So I've done 150 CDs. This is just a cover of a few of them. So you have like Tibetan bowls, fantastic music, mystical music of Bali. And then so each one of these CDs represents quite an adventure. African safari, that was West Africa, Senegal and Gambia. I did a peyote ceremony, Navajo peyote ceremony that I recorded. Berber Marrakesh, Berber music, Bansuri music of India, Thai music, music of Tahiti. I went over there and spent time, a month with Danny and got the tuwedi, the wonderful music of Tahiti. And so it's been quite an experience. Gambu, you see there on the lower right, Gambu is these really long bamboo flutes from Indonesia that are just gorgeous. And they play them with circular breathing, so this constant breath. They don't take a breath. What you do is you inflate your cheeks and you blow out. As you blow in, as you blow out, the cheeks deflate, and you inhale through your nose, and you can get this, what they call circular breathing. And that's a pretty fun technique. Okay, then Disney. So I got this call. A friend of mine, composer Stephen James Taylor, was doing a thing for Disneyland Shanghai. No, Disney. He was over in Disney Imagineering in a recording session. And for some reason, they were taking a break, and my name came up, and they said, oh, yeah, we've licensed a bunch of Chuck's music. Really? Well, he lives close by. We'll invite him over. So I went over there and spent an afternoon with them at Imagineering, telling them about some of the travels and stories. And it was several weeks later, I get a call from this producer, a fellow by the name of Mike Fracassi, a good friend of mine now. And he said, Chuck, could you come down? We'd like to talk to you about something. So I said, sure. I went over there, and here's a little room filled with all these executive types. I knew one guy, and they're sitting there, and there's a big stack of my CDs in the table in front of them. And they're trying to impress me with, vice president of this and president of that. And they have up on the wall this diagram. They said, well, we're creating in Shanghai, China, this new Disneyland, and this is a place called Adventure Isle. So that's the artist's rendition. It's going to have a volcano. It's got a village. It's got its own tribe, and it has a village. It has a ride that has a crocosaur that lives inside the volcano. It's a mythical creature. And all these things that were really fascinating. And I said, I'll do it. I'd love to. I said, but it can't be. It's got to be tribal music for this Arbori people, a fictitious people that don't exist. It can't be Chinese, and it can't be African. It's got to be something unique. Now, here's the demo that they asked. So we need a 2-minute demo just to see if you can pull this off. And this is what we want you to do in 2 minutes. Start off with a village ambience. And then children are going to be singing. And they're happy children. And then all of a sudden, up in the volcano is the crocosaur, this mythical creature that starts to roar. And these people get frightened. Then the shaman comes out, and he starts a prayer. And then eventually he calms down the crocosaur. Things go back to normal, and the kids start singing again.
All in 2 minutes?
In 2 minutes. So, from all of the travels, I had a lot of those elements. I had background sounds of villages. That's no problem. I got my cousin's kids, brought them over, taught them a little song, invented a language, and they sang this little song. I had the recordings of some shaman that had been doing some chanting from Bali. And then I'd done a thing called dinosaur drums, where I kind of recreated the sounds of dinosaurs. So that was a crocosaur. Anyways, they loved it, and I got the gig. So that was a 2-year project. It was a heck of a lot of fun. And so basically I created, I could do whatever I wanted. If I needed a children's choir, we'd hire a children's choir. If I needed vocalists or whatever, I recorded most of the instruments at my house, and I create and make instruments all the time. And then we'd go to their studios on occasion and mix things together. So that was 2 years. And then at the very end, I would send them what they call stems, and then sent those over to China. Then we went over there for what's called the soft opening. And then we walked through there for a number of days after hours, deciding where the sound should be in these speakers. Speakers up in the trees, speakers down over here, speaker on. It was just really a blast. So we had a good time doing that, and so that was Adventure Isle. And it's become so popular that they've expanded it, and added a children's section, and I was hired to do that as well. So that was a heck of a lot of fun. You're seeing now what Adventure Isle looks like. So if you get to Shanghai, China, listen to Adventure Isle. Then I also did some music for the Avatar thing. Anyways, so my travels after that, since then, I've been doing a lot of Indonesia. Like here's Bali, the rice fields of Bali. What else do we have after that? Okay, and this was really fascinating. A friend of mine, Naoman Wenton, who's a Balinese priest, he teaches gamelan here, but he goes back there every summer. He said, Chuck, I need you to do a special recording for me. And here are these priests, and they have this book of chanting. It's all in Sanskrit. So one guy reads in Sanskrit language, and the other guy interprets it and chants it in Balinese language. So I recorded this thing. It was really fantastic, and that's what these guys are doing, is this, and that's part of my recording setup. So that was a lot of fun. So then I hired a bunch of singers. These are some singers that I used for the Avatar thing, and so I've spent a lot of time. This is a guy named Pak Made Trip. He's a very famous musician, and he makes really wonderful instruments out of bamboo. He's a master of bamboo, and I love the sound of bamboo. There's an instrument called jagog. These are jagog dancers. And it's gigantic bamboo, and it gets about this big in diameter, and it can be up to 20 feet long. And they tune it, and they hit it with these big, huge mallets. It's just a massive wall of sound. So then that's I've done that kind of traveling through Indonesia. This is in Java. Some really wonderful costumes that they use there. Then, of course, I've been back to Peru many times and spent time there recording the traditional music. There's lots of it in different parts. For example, the Afro-Peruvian music in Callao is wonderful. The Andean music with the panpipes is up there, and of course, the piranha there. Now, how did I get that shot? Anybody have any ideas? No. That is a dirty window, and these are stuffed piranhas. So I took that photo, and it looks just like they're in the water, but they're all stuffed piranhas. So that's what that shot is. Then I make instruments. Now these, I didn't make these, but a good friend of mine made these gigantic marimbas. This is like $20,000 worth of stuff. Big, huge marimba bars, and you have to hit them with these mallets. And it's such a low frequency that you can't. Now this is jagog, big, and I bought that, and I brought that home. Big, gigantic bamboo xylophone type thing. What other instruments? Oh, then I did a whole CD with nothing but balloons. So this is one of my balloon instruments. And then I made these jungle drums. So I like a lot of drums and percussion stuff. And that's my guitar, steampunk guitar that I made. And that's a performance that we did, myself and a couple of friends, using instruments that we made at a place called Moore York Gallery in Huntington, here, not too far away. Yeah, it's a wonderful place. And then with Alan Smith, we climbed Mount Kinabalu, and that's in Borneo. And there we are with the Adventures Club flag. And with Jeff Holmes and Shane Berry, that was Morocco, went to Papua New Guinea and had a great trip. So that's just some of the shots. We went to the Goroka Festival, which is really an amazing thing. And that's me in one of the villages with one of the guys we met. And some of the dancers at the Goroka Festival, wonderful face paintings. You know, I got some of that paint in my eyes, and I had to get it off like really fast because that was painful. These are some of the villagers. And Papua was a fabulous place. It was a very unfortunate thing. Shane Berry, so after that trip, I continued on to Indonesia to do some recording. Jeff went to Japan. Shane Berry came back here, and a week later, he's gone. Now, we were roommates, and so a week later, he went, I think his last day, he went on a hike, had breakfast with some friends, was on the massage table, and just stopped breathing, which was a huge shock. I was in Bali and heard the news, and I thought, man, if that had happened in Papua New Guinea just a week earlier, that could have been a real disaster. But it was what it was. Okay, now we're going to watch a video I did for a TV series. I was pitching a TV series which didn't get picked up. So this is one of the episodes on Cuba. You came to see Cuba, so that we're going to watch Cuba now. Known as a hardline communist country and shunned by the United States, those who venture to Cuba are excited to find wonderful people and a great culture. Hi, I'm Chuck Jonkey. Welcome to Exotic Worlds from Havana, Cuba. Only 112 miles off the coast of Florida, Cuba might as well be 1,000. It's a fascinating tropical island full of passion, culture, and revolution. Historic Havana Vieja is full of wonderful colonial architecture. Hispanic Andalusian buildings were constructed for beauty and protection from pirates. The Castillo del Morro sits at the entrance of the Bay of Havana. Construction started in 1589. Look at this fantastic set of wheels. Thousands of classic cars graze the roads of Cuba. These cars are lovingly maintained and cared for. I came to Cuba to experience the sizzling culture. I'm fascinated by creative cultures around the world. Old cars are a fun part of that culture here in Cuba. Transportation can take many forms. This young man drives his horse cart around looking for potential customers. And don't forget the bicycle rickshaws. They're lots of fun and a great way to explore the streets of Havana. And here's a Coco taxi. The driver wears a helmet, but not you, so hang on. The Capitolo Nacional was finished in 1929. This beautiful marble-covered building is similar to the U.S. Capitol, but with greater detail. Congress met here until 1959, but now it houses the Cuban Academy of Sciences. And here's the Gran Teatro, next to the Hotel Inglaterra. This is one of the largest opera houses in the world. The Cathedral of San Cristobal is a national monument. It's thought to be one of the finest cathedrals in the Americas. The famous Hotel Nacional, Frank Sinatra, Earl Flynn, Winston Churchill, and many other celebrities have stayed here. Restaurants, crumbling buildings, and haphazard streets are all parts of this complicated, quirky town. It's great fun to explore. I walked through many neighborhoods to get a feel of the Cuban people, who they are and how they live. And spicy music is everywhere. As a musician and composer, I'm here to absorb the vibrant rhythms and sounds. My music features influences from travels all over the world. I quickly realized that music and dance are a crucial part of Cubans' lives. And speaking of music, here's a Rhumba festival in a park in Vieja Havana. Rhumba is the basis of Afro-Cuban music. These beats go straight back to the African Congo. Rhumba emerged in the 1800s as a protest to slavery. These dances sizzle. People of all ages feel the seductive spirit of Rhumba. There are three main styles of Rhumba: Guaguancó, Yambú, and Colombia. It was a scorching day, but that didn't stop the Cubans from dancing in the park.
My search for incredible music was rewarded on the first night. I left my room to check out Havana's night scene and got as far as the lobby. These musicians knocked my socks off. Their name is Septeto Sonido Son. Here's their singer Gustavo. I met the guys and started planning my first recording session. This musical style is called son. The next day I continued exploring Havana. Here's the Palacio del Centro Asturiano. It houses the Fine Arts Museum, Museum de Bellas Artes. We're in the Central Park. It's the heart of Havana and a popular gathering place in the evenings when the air is cooler. It was hot and humid, so I gravitated to the coast, the refreshing Caribbean waters. The kids have carefree times diving into the ocean. It was fun watching their inventive water sports. Everywhere I went, kids were out playing. Paseo del Prado. This beautiful boulevard extends from downtown Havana to the coast. There's always lots of activity here. The Malecón, a fascinating seafront promenade overlooking the Bay of Havana, with the intense tropical sun. A favorite pastime is leaping off the cement wall along the Malecón and hopefully not ripping your skin to shreds on the sharp rocks. Kids of all ages constantly play in the water, while others are content to watch and admire. This vendor tries to sell me peanuts. Meanwhile, behind him, some daring teenagers dash across the busy street, avoiding traffic and hitting a precise spot to dive into the sea. Fortunately, they find the narrow passage and avoid some very serious injuries. Young people love to gather here. It's a popular place for romantic couples. The sunsets are magical. Cubans are very inventive, creating rafts from styrofoam. Traditionally, they come to the Malecón to float and fish as the sun goes down. My next stop was an enchanting, strange place called Callejón de Hamel. I met a local musician, Abdel, and his wife, who brought me here. Local artist Salvador Gonzalez created this open-air art gallery, painting walls, buildings, houses, and more. And here's Afro-Cuban music dedicated to Santeria. Congas, bata drums, and various handmade percussion instruments pound out Rhumba rhythms to the gods. This whole area is dedicated to Santeria, a mixture of tribal African religion and Catholic saint worship. There are several shrines dedicated to various orishas. This style of dance is called guaguancó. It's flirtatious and definitely has sexual overtones. The man tries to catch the woman off guard with a flip of the handkerchief, symbolizing a sexual touch called vacunao. She uses her skirt to protect her pelvis from the touch. These astounding African rhythms are infectious and very compelling. I couldn't stand still and found myself moving to the steaming rhythms. He puts a sing on every Sunday. So the incredible musical we just saw, the Rhumba, which goes back to the roots of Africa, it's very, very cool. Quirky, colorful, tropical art is everywhere here. An amazing display of artistic creativity. The sides of entire buildings and houses are painted. I've never seen anything like it. I was really excited to record the group I met on my first night in Havana. Here's the recording session of the group Septeto Sonido Son. Son is a colorful mixture of African rhythms with the Spanish canción style. It's the precursor to today's salsa music. These guys are great. I sat in on one tune playing the güiro, a percussion instrument made from a gourd. It was an excellent session, and I came away with great music and ideas for my own new compositions. And here's a festive carnival. The music and drums are terrific. If you want to practice dancing on stilts, this is the place. I hopped a bus and headed south to Cienfuegos. It's 150 miles south of Havana. Cienfuegos is called La Perla del Sur, a beautiful seaside town full of superb architecture, art, and music. Columbus sailed into this bay in 1494. This is the provincial capital and is known for its Afro-Cuban influences. The great Cuban singer Benny Moré was born here in 1919. The famous Hotel Jagua. Next door is the Palacio del Valle, built in 1913. The architecture is in the Arabic-Spanish style. It's lavishly decorated and features a blending of Gothic, Moorish, and Venetian styles. The calm waters of Cienfuegos make it a perfect place for enjoying the Caribbean. The balmy breeze blows through the palm trees for another rainbow-colored sunset. I was resting one afternoon and heard drum beats. I went to the balcony and across the street saw a big gathering. I went in with the crowd, and to my surprise, it was a Santeria ceremony. Santeria is an old African tradition that permeates the Cuban culture. The man in white is the priest who keeps time and sings to the Orisha saints. Yoruba slaves from West Africa combined their animistic beliefs and tied them loosely to Catholic saints. The participants smoked cigars, drank rum, and danced to the drums. There are probably more believers in Santeria than Catholicism. The ceremony went on for hours. The guy sitting with his head in his hands was overcome by the spirit. Santeria is an important part of this community. It also provides other opportunities. Zenaida is a great seamstress and makes extra money making santeria costumes. This one in red and black is for El Iguá, Saint Anthony, the deity who delivers messages to God. He also opens and closes paths in our lives. She explains the clothing that represents the different orishas or saints.
Rojo, que es Changó, aquí. Y aquí Ochun, estos son de hombre.
Zenaida was kind enough to invite me to her home to meet her husband Arnaldo and the rest of the family.
¿Viste qué linda, eh?
Their hospitality was genuine. I was treated just like family. I was introduced around the neighborhood. Cubans are very friendly and always welcoming. After all of the great experiences in Cienfuegos, I decided it was time to go back to Havana. Revolutionary slogans and signs are everywhere, and constant reminders to Cubans of the 1959 revolution ending the bombastic Bautista years. Cuba is the longest-standing socialist country in the Western Hemisphere. So I decided to find out more about the beginnings and the history of the Cuban Revolution. I went to the Revolutionary Museum. Boats, planes, and weapons used during the revolution are displayed. Here's the wreckage of the U.S. spy plane shot down during the Cuban Missile Crisis. A makeshift tank crafted from a bulldozer. Planes from the Bay of Pigs invasion and missiles are displayed. The museum is the former presidential palace of Bautista. It's a beautiful building using neoclassical elements. Historic radios and photos from the Cuban Revolution. And of course, there's lots of photos of Che and Fidel. I was surprised to see a bust of Abraham Lincoln. The dome is marvelous and beautifully crafted. Che and Camilo Cifuentes. The Black Flag Monument consists of 138 flags, each with a white star representing those who have died from violent acts against Cuba since 1959. I wanted to dig deeper into the roots of Cuban music, whose origins go directly back to West Africa. I contacted Gustavo, the singer I'd recorded, and asked if he knew of a Rhumba group. Here we are on a second story of an unfinished building deep in Havana Vieja, recording Rhumba music. The two wooden sticks play the clave part, and the rest of the drummers and percussionists follow. Gustavo leads the group with his incredible voice. For this session, I also had to pay for cigarettes and rum. Perks for the players. During parts of the Rhumba songs, there's a call and response between the singer and chorus. course, I always sit in and play. It's such a thrill to play with these master drummers. I've recorded over 100 CDs from my travels. What a great job, huh? My passions for music, adventure, and travel make this the best job on the planet. Septeto Caracol is the name of this group. I met them earlier playing in front of a restaurant. I recorded them in one of the musicians' houses. These guys smoke. Their musicianship is excellent. This is what Cuba is all about, a vibrant culture full of passion and creativity. Life is tough for these people, but they make the best of it. Through wars, revolutions, colonialism, and severe economic times, Cubans have survived and done it well. When you put politics aside, we're all the same people, and the same is true in Cuba. We've had a great trip, wonderful music, exquisite culture, and an exotic island. You've got to come to Cuba. I'm Chuck Jonkey. Join us next time on Exotic Worlds.
Thanks very much. So what I'm going to do for just a couple minutes here, I love to create music and sound with little instruments, and I'm going to do a little live thing here. So even last night I created an instrument, and here it is here. It's a piece of PVC with a skin on it. So PVC, a little bit of skin, a few little BBs in it, and you get some wild sounds. And, there's nothing that does that. Okay, so now we're going to come over here, get these amps going, and play some stuff. Okay. Okay, so I make instruments out of everyday stuff. Now this, for example, is a serving tray. But I put a little, what's called a little piezo pickup on it and run it through a little effect, and you get this kind of a sound. It's like a gong. Super Bowl. This is a cardboard box. So I've got a comb on there and some other things. And once again, with these little piezo discs, you get this kind of... Sounds like a frog almost. Piece of sandpaper. Now I'm going to change the echo to make it a little bit faster. This is a pipe from, it's an aluminum pipe that they use to put on a water heater. It's a vent pipe. But it's got a really cool sound to it. And whatever you hit it with, different things make different sounds for it. Then this is a little musical instrument that's got a fun sound. There you have it. So a friend and I do a live, what we call a sci-fi sound bath at movie theaters using 5 tables full of stuff like this. We've done it in Eagle Rock a couple of times. It's called the Vidiot's Movie Theater. And we'll be doing it again sometime. We don't have an exact date, so stay tuned and you'll have an experience. And we have sci-fi visuals at the same time. So that's it.
Chuck, are you open to take some questions?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to start. You've got some really interesting devices up there. How do you know where to hit them to get the right tone?
Experimenting, and you never know quite what's going to happen. So, for example, you see these little, well, with this one you can see it. It's called a piezo disc. And if you push it with a certain kind of an epoxy with a little bit of pressure, it really takes any kind of vibration. So I have to see what's the best place to put it to get the sound that I want. So I tape it there, that doesn't sound good. Tape it there, okay, that's where it's going to be, and then start playing with it. And every time we play this stuff, new things happen.
Okay, so I'm watching, I don't know if it's a crock pot or what it is you've got here, the black ball.
This thing?
Yeah, you're hitting that at certain points, and you seem to know exactly where to hit it to get the different tones on it.
Well, this is kind of like this is pitched. So these are, you see these little.
Okay, so you've got spots on it, you can see it.
Yeah, you can see it, and each one, this is actually tunable to a certain extent.
Okay.
So I did not make this one, but this is a tunable thing.
Start with Michael over here.
How many instruments do you think you have at your home, and what are 2 or 3 of the most exotic, and where do they come from?
I could fill this room, basically. So some of the more exotic things, I've done a bunch of balloon stuff, did an hour's worth of music with balloons, but then I have like 8-foot-long stringed instruments with also springs, get a lot of great sounds with springs, and even with packing, when they pack crates with steel bands. Those steel bands sound fabulous with a pickup. Now, anything that's metal, that's ferrous metal, not aluminum, can be picked up with a guitar pickup. Everything else can be picked up, anything else with like these little ceramic piezo discs. Plug that into an amplifier. That's why I've got this amplifier. And this little device is, they don't make it anymore. It's called the Time Bender. And what I love about it is it gives you echoes in patterns, echo patterns. And it goes left and right. I'm really trying to, this weekend I'm going to a guitar pedal show, and they just don't quite get it yet. I want to have something like this upgraded to have multiple outs. So we have surround sound in our movie theaters, but these kind of pedals don't do it. Stereo is the most that they have. So I want to be able to have an exotic echo pattern and have it go doom 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 ga 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 doom doom, things like that. So, yeah.
Hey Chuck, first of all, I really, really enjoyed your presentation. It was
Oh,
phenomenal.
Thank you.
And your Exotic Worlds video, is this the only one, or do you have
No,
others?
I
and
have
where
5. I did
can
5
you-
episodes. We tried to sell it, didn't happen. So I've got Morocco,
Wow.
2 of Peru, and then I think 1 of India. Yeah.
Even PBS? No?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've tried to pitch this stuff because we want to do a whole bunch of them. Because I always take footage when I travel, but you know, I'm not much of a promoter type guy. I just make stuff.
I'd love to see the rest of them. Where and when?
Well, maybe here.
On your trip and recording to Cuba, what was your personal favorite experience from it all?
Well, here's a funny thing. So that first night that I got there, it had been a long day to get there, and I'm in this hotel in the Vedado district. Went down to the first floor, and these guys are spectacular. So that was the first connection. Through that Gustavo guy, he introduced me to a whole bunch of his friends. They're all interconnected. And also, just walking around, I would hear music, and I said, these guys are great. And I had some money and wanted to record them. Here's the problem. With the guys in the Vedado district, I said, let's record them. I said, let's just come up to my room, and we'll record in the room. It's a nice, quiet room. You know, they would not allow Cubans into that room. Just as a tourist and somebody who cleans that room, that's it. It was a law. So that's crazy. I mean, even if I want them to come in, can't do it. So we did recording underneath. There was a restaurant that was not in use in the basement, and that's where we recorded them. It was a little bit too much of a cave kind of a sound. But then when we did the Rhumba thing, and that was on a building that was not even finished, and if you went too far one way, you'd fall off, several, stories. And that was a blast. It was hot as it could be. And these guys, it's really funny. There was 2 main guys. I paid them the money. They get their buddies. The buddies get paid cigars and rum. These other guys get the cash. So they're happy for cigars and rum, they're happy to play. And so we went through, Havana Vieja is totally different than the regular Havana. It's really where all the gritty stuff happens. So we're there collecting instruments and then pulling them in these wagons through the streets. And it's the kind of thing that you, on your own, you would not be very comfortable. But if you're with a local, no problem.
Really great
talk, Chuck. I
Oh,
enjoyed
thanks.
it very much, and those
Oh,
sounds are so cool. Really, really interesting.
thank you.
But you mentioned that you did something in Burma. I love Burma, and I know that there's a lot of really unusual,
No, I've not been to
unusual
Burma.
music.
I've not been to Burma.
Oh, I thought you had.
No,
Oh, my mistake.
not yet.
Okay. Then tell us something else about India, if you would.
Oh, India.
Some other project in India.
So, I mean, I've been to India quite a number of times. In each place, there's different styles of music. And India is a fascinating place because of these exotic rhythms. So, if you're an Indian musician, you have to know what's called the tala system. And if you're a dancer, you have to know the tala system. If you're a singer, you have to know this, because all of the tala system is when they have like a song what they call like a raga. This is not the pop music. This is the traditional music, which I'm most interested in. So they may say, okay, this is going to be a piece of music in 17 time. It's a 17-beat cycle. And so melodically, it fits into that as it does rhythmically. But the rhythm guys are just off the charts. Now,
Is there very much improvisation,
Oh.
or is it pretty structured?
well, it's structured, but there is improvisation within this framework of like 17. So, for example, when I go running every day, I'll take, for example, 17. Well, there's different ways of factoring it. It could be 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. You can do it half time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. Or you can go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, like that. And then you can combine them, single and double. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, that kind of a thing. And it all has to fit in within that rhythmic cycle. As long as it does, then no problem. But I've learned that, and I use it almost every single day, and I try to share that with other musicians sometimes. They just, some get it, most of them are not interested.
So my question is, you had an adorable picture. You were in a band as a kid.
Yeah.
You went to college, though, and you were thinking of being a dentist?
A dentist,
Is
right.
So where did you go off the tracks? What prompted, and where'd you get your first break? I mean...
Well, so my passion was always with music. Like I say, I have bands all the time. Went on the mission, that was wonderful, and then that gave me the international experience and started to think about the travel. But then, the university, my brother-in-law was a dentist, and I thought, well, they make a lot of money, da-da-da-da-da. So he pulled a few strings, and I was actually accepted to a dental school. At the same time, there was a music school called it was called Guitar Institute, that was just starting up. And I thought, you know what? And I've never looked back on that ever, because the music has given me so much joy. And I have plenty of friends that did go the medical route. And they play music when they have a little bit of free time, but they always look at me like, man, we wish we'd kind of done that. But they've got a lot more money.
Hey, Chuck, that was a great presentation. I enjoyed it really a lot. I really enjoyed listening to the music as well. A question that I have is, when you're traveling to all these different locations, I would imagine you don't necessarily speak their language, but it seems like music might be the common language. Can you speak to that? Just the idea of using music to connect with others?
Yeah, most places that I go, I don't speak the language. So I'll give you an example. For example, in Morocco. So when I got to Morocco, the only thing I got was a flight. And I went to Marrakesh. And when I got there, I'm asking other people, I said, do you know of a cheap place to stay? And nobody had any ideas. And so I'm asking in the airport, and it's late at night. Cheap place, cheap place. And some guy points to a local guy, and he beckons me out into the darkness of the night. Turns out he's the local bus driver. I get on his bus. I'm the only passenger on his public bus. And he takes me about 20 minutes into the Medina of Marrakesh and just points. So I went, and that night I found a place. It was so-so. And then got up the next morning and then went deeper into the Medina and found a much better place. So then I started doing my explorations. And there was a guy that had gotten on the flight in London, but he got off in Casablanca. But I saw him the next day, and he was a guy who had long dreadlocks, kind of weird dress and bone in his whatever, fedora hat. So I saw him the next day, and I said, how did you get here? He said, well, I took the bus. I said, well, you should have just kept on. Turns out this guy had been a Deadhead from Canada. And so when the Grateful Dead gave it up, right, he quit following the Dead, and he would come to Morocco for 3 months out of the year. And then he'd go back to Canada, and he had a van, and he'd take all the stuff. You can buy all kinds of great stuff, and he'd go to these music festivals selling his things. And I said, well, I'm a musician composer. I'm looking for local guys. He said, well, I do the same thing. He said, let me take you to Abdul's shop. I said, okay, fine. So he takes me deep into the Medina. This is the second day to Abdul's shop. It's a little teeny cubby with some instruments and stuff. Abdul's not there, but on the wall is a poster of Abdul with Jimmy Page and Robert Plant of the Led Zeppelin band. And I'm thinking, this is the guy. So when I finally met Abdul, we did a recording session late at night with some of his local guys right there in that shop. So that's how things happen. I didn't speak their language. And these other guys who were in the Medina, there was these Berber guys. And one guy, so there's so many different cultures. There's the Ganawa, the Berbers, these other people that do these different styles of music. The Berber guy, he played banjo. He had this big hat and had a live chicken on his head, a rooster. And I thought, well, that's pretty darn cool. So he's playing, and he's got his long jalava on, and they have the band was great. So after that, I went up to them and found somebody that spoke a little bit of English and a little bit of Arabic, and said, could I hire you? I want to hire you guys to record you. And I gave them a price. And they said, okay, fine, we'll meet you the next day. So I met them early the next morning, and I fed them breakfast, paid for it. And then the first thing we had to do before we could go do the recording was chase down that rooster. So they spent a half an hour chasing this thing in and out of motorcycles and all sort of things. They finally got the rooster into a little cage. We hired a couple of taxis, go way out into the desert, a ways out of town. They said, is this okay? I said, I guess so. So that's where we did the recording. So they take the rooster out of the thing, puts it on his head, and he plays his little banjo, and that was the Berber. So that's how stuff happens. It just happens like magic all the time.
Did the rooster crow to the music?
No, it didn't. It didn't make a noise, but it was just there, and why it didn't fly off, and it could certainly run. I don't know. Yeah.
In your experience in making new instruments out of everyday objects, was there any that didn't really actually work out no matter what you tried?
Plenty. I have plenty of things that just don't work. Things that I think, oh, this is going to be great, and it doesn't work. But there's some things that you don't think is going to work at all, and works fantastic. And I'll give you an example of that. So I was in my garage, and I've got a little table out in the garage. And I was thinking, okay, here I have different ways of picking things up, to put it into like an amplifier so we can run it through an effect. Anything that's metal, what around here is metal, ferrous metal? And I've got this tape measure. What the heck, is this thing metal? So I put a magnet, sure enough, it's metal. So I stretch out this tape measure, right? So I've got about 5 feet of it, and I clamp it down on both sides of the table, and then I put a little bit of a dowel underneath it, and then put a pickup on top of it into an amplifier. Unbelievable. So I've made a bunch of things out of tape measures that sound spectacular. You would never guess it's a cheap tape measure. So,
Chuck Jonkey, thank you for a fantastic presentation here at the Adventures Club. And for those of you watching online, we're live every Thursday. Join us, and if you're in town, come down and see us.